Hi guys, Dr. Drwendydearborne here with another episode of Food Beyond Its Nutrition. And guys, today I have Singapore noodles. Yum. Okay, Singapore noodles takes an array of vegetables, as you can see. I have red cabbage, I have white cabbage, I have capsicums, and that's green, yellow, orange, and red. I also have my favorite, I love me some mange tout or snow peas. I also have my spring onions, and I've cut the whites off, and I'm gonna cook the whites with my shallots. I also have a tablespoon of rough chopped garlic, and I have my carrots here. I've got some carrots, and I have some green beans. They're buried underneath the broccoli, and of course I've got broccoli, and this makes up the array of vegetables that I have. You can use whatever vegetables you like. You can use a lot of vegetables or no vegetables. The choice is yours. Here I have 2 eggs, and this recipe takes an omelette, and I'm going to create the omelette, but I'm going to season it with some light soy sauce, not to be confused with low sodium soy sauce. And with that, I'm also going to add a splash of sesame oil. And this is all about layering of flavor. It just layers and layers of flavor. One of the stars of the show with Singapore noodles is curry. And of course, you can find this recipe for my Singapore curry mix on my website. I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of that. But that's the star of the show. So that for the minute. Oh, yeah, I nearly forgot that. I'm going to use some oyster sauce, some mushroom oyster sauce, and some of my homemade chili oil. And I was going to say a splash, but I think I use about a tablespoon of that. And this is extra. This is something that I like to do. It just gives it another layer of flavor. I'm going to use avocado oil. That's my favorite oil. And guys, that is everything per se that we need, with the exception of the main ingredient. And that would be, bam, the noodles, the rice noodles. Now, the noodles here, you'll see the rice noodles here, and I have them in boiling water. The water, I have turned the fire off, okay guys, and I have put the noodles into the boiling water, and I'm going to leave them in there for about 10 minutes, but I need to agitate them up and separate the noodles out. It's really, like I'm doing here, it's really important to know that these noodles can go from overcooked in a heartbeat. So it's really important to, again, put your noodles in boiling water and leave them there until the noodles become pliable and they're soft. Look, I'm breaking that with my nail, and that's what you want. It is just beyond al dente. These noodles can go from good to mushy in a heartbeat. It's also important that your noodles are made of rice flour, water, and salt. What I've decided to do here is to add some sesame oil. It's not necessary, but again, another layer of flavor. You actually don't rinse these noodles. You don't need to rinse them as long as you don't overcook them. So I'm actually going to mix the sesame oil through, take a pair of tongs and just sort of like mix the oil through. Once again, this isn't anything that you have to do. It's just another, for me, layer of flavor. And food for me is all about the flavor. It's all about the texture. It's all about the crunch. It's all about that. So guys, we're going to mix that through, and we're going to leave that aside. And once again, you don't have to cover it. You don't have to do anything like that. You just leave it and allow it to hang out or set aside until you're ready to cook it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to beat up the eggs, and I have already added the light soy sauce, not to be confused with low sodium. I'm going to put here a splash of sesame oil. And guys, that was maybe about that was maybe about 1/8 of a teaspoon. It really was just a splash. And once again, It creates layers of flavor, and that's what you are looking for. It's really, to season your food all at the end is an opportunity missed to create flavor as you move along. So anyway, we're going to give this a really nice whisk. We're going to give this a really, really, really nice whisk. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create an omelette. And that omelette will actually go in at the end of, towards the end of the cooking of the noodles. Right, guys, so to create the omelette, I'm going to use a wok. I'm going to put some oil in, and I'm going to get that nice and hot. Maybe about, I don't know, maybe about a tablespoon of oil. And here, the oil looks hot enough, but once I pour the eggs in, I realized the oil isn't quite as hot as I wanted it, but we will make do. We will definitely make do. Here, I'm actually going to move the egg around so I can create my omelette. Guys, it doesn't have to be all fluffy and all this sort of jazz. And it definitely, we're not looking for a Parisian style omelette where it's really pale. It's a pale yellow. This needs to have a little bit of color up on it. And so we're going to do that. And eventually what we're going to do is fold the omelette over. And once we fold the omelette over, we're actually going to give it a little squish down so that all the kind of runny egg or still raw egg comes out. And then we're going to flip it over. And once we've actually flipped it over, it's about done. Press it down again. This is done. So we're going to remove this and we're going to create ribbons. And so I'm going to put this on a plate. And I'm going to use the spatula instead of, a knife, putting it on a cutting board. I'm going to use the spatula to create ribbons. And the ribbons can be as thick as you want, as thin as you want, as chunky, or you can just cut it into chunks, whatever you want to do. Okay, guys? But you do cut it up. And once it is all cut up, we will put it in towards the end of the cooking time of the Singapore noodles. So I'm going to wipe the wok out. And remember, guys, it's hot, so bear that in mind. And I'm going to start cooking the vegetables. I'm going to add some oil to the wok. And we're going to cook the vegetables in a specific order. We're going to cook the lightest vegetables first, or the vegetables that will be prone to discoloration from other vegetables, like the red cabbage will discolor the white cabbage. So that gets cooked last. See, I'm going to take out that piece of red cabbage. But I'm going to cook the cabbage. I'm going to saute that off. And once I've sauteed that off, we're going to proceed with the rest of the vegetables. Now, I want these vegetables to maintain their crunch. And as you can see, I'm cooking this on a fairly high temperature. The temperature on this is fairly high. Sometimes I cook it and the temperature is really high where I will sear the cabbage ever so slightly. But what I don't want is the cabbage to be overcooked and limp and lifeless. So the next thing I'm going to cook will be the broccoli. And of course I could have steamed the broccoli and I could have steamed the green beans. But guys, I decided not to. It's just a step that I think is unnecessary because you can get what you need by cooking the broccoli and the green beans in the wok. Because once we bloom the actual curry powder, we're going to cook the vegetables again. Okay, guys, we're going to cook the vegetables again. So for me, to steam them, not really necessary. It's just another step. And I like my vegetables to be perhaps tender, but al dente. Very important. I don't like mushy vegetables. So right now, let's see what we're going to do. We've got the wok going. And I'm going to do my shallots. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna cook my shallots and the white onions, the actual spring onion whites, and I'm gonna saute these. The pan was a little dry, and so I'm gonna give it a splash of oil. And that's the other thing. You get to control how much oil you use. Again, I'm not looking to brown these. I'm not looking to cook them down. I just want them to soften ever so slightly so that it actually imparts flavor to the wok, and it just ever so slightly starts to soften it, starts to break it down. So I'm going to cook those off, and once those are cooked off, we will move on to the next vegetable, which I believe might be my peppers. So we're going to get ready to cook the peppers. And again, guys, it's the same principle applies throughout. I'm going to cook the peppers, but I am not cooking them to death. Doesn't that look pretty, those colors? I mean, look at it's vibrant. That's one of the things that I like about Singapore noodles, is that it is vibrant, it's flavorful, and I added a splash of oil there because, again, there wasn't enough oil in the pan, and you get to control your oil. So once those are cooked enough for me, they were in there for about a minute or so. I'm going to get ready to do my carrots, and the carrots take a little bit longer because, of course, they are a harder and firmer vegetable. So I'm going to cook my carrots for a minute, and I needed a little bit more oil. You can see it's smoking there. It needed some oil. So I needed a little bit more oil, and that's how hot the wok is, guys. And this process does not take long at all. So, you know, and again, we're going to cook this in the curry, okay? Here, the last vegetable to go in is my red cabbage, and we're going to saute that off. And once that's all sauteed off, that is all the vegetables done. Once again, like the white cabbage, I don't want this to be all limp, lifeless, overcooked and soft. I need it to be al dente. I need it to be slightly tender, but al dente. Okay, guys? Very, 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 very important. And you can use whatever vegetables you want, or no vegetables, just onions and garlic. It's your world. Right now, I've added more oil to the wok, and I am going to saute the garlic. And the oil that I actually turned the wok off. It's been turned off. And I've turned it off because the residual heat, because before you saw it smoking, so it's got enough residual heat to cook the garlic. I do not want the garlic to burn. Brown garlic is fine. Burnt garlic, that's a no-no. It's bitter. So I'm going to add 2 good tablespoons, and that might have been 2.5 tablespoons of my curry powder mix. And I'm going to start blooming that. Bear in mind, guys, that the heat is still off, okay? You do not, and I quote, hear me clearly, you do not want to burn your garlic. As you can see, there's not enough, your curry powder. As you can see, there's not enough oil in the wok, and I've added some more oil. This actually will give you control, and it will also allow you to be able to coat the actual noodles when you put them in. The fire was still off, and I am getting ready to turn the fire back on so that we can now bloom the garlic. And it's on low. The fire's on low, medium low. And there I said I've put a splash of my homemade chili oil in. That was maybe about 1.5 tablespoons. And I think a cardamom, 2 cardamoms fell in there or something, because I was going to take them out, and I thought, I'm just going to leave them. So my curry is bloomed. That took about 3 to 4 minutes. Then I'm going to add all my vegetables back in. And this is what I was saying to you earlier, that you actually add the vegetables back in. So, you know, to actually blanch, you know, your broccoli and or beans, not necessary. Give this a good mix so everything is thoroughly coated. Guys, doesn't that look good? Now you can eat this, just this, by itself with some rice. Literally, it's delicious. So guys, I'm getting ready to add my noodles, and as you can see, they're still very, very separate. They are not all mushy and clumped together and all of that jazz. So I'm going to use the tongs, and that's my, as they say, my weapon of choice to get this job done. And I'm just going to keep tossing and tossing and tossing. This is on a very, very low heat, might I add. So I'm going to keep tossing the noodles until they are totally coated, until all the noodles are coated. And yes, guys, it can take a minute, but that's okay. I'm going to keep tossing, and that's what you need to do. Just keep tossing and turning the noodles until they are thoroughly coated. You shouldn't see any white. I've added some more oil. There was not enough oil in the pan to facilitate the coating of the noodles. Because once again, you don't need any white noodles. And I'm just using the spoon here to get what else I needed in regard to coverage of the noodles. Keep going, guys. Doesn't that look lovely? It smells absolutely amazing too. It really does. Look at that. Look at the colors. Look at the colors. And the vegetables, you can tell they're not overcooked. They're not mushy. The noodles aren't overcooked and sticking together. Here I'm going to add my mange tout, and I have turned the heat off. The mange tout or snow peas only need residual heat to cook, okay? If you cook them in heat, they overcook in a heartbeat. I'm adding the eggs back into the mix because we are almost done. I'm adding the eggs back into this mix, and I'm using my tongs once again to mix it all through. And because you actually season the eggs, you're not dependent upon the actual curry mix to flavor it, okay? And this is what I mean by seasoning as you go along. Really, really, really important. It imparts layers of flavor. I'm also going to add to the actual my green onion tops. Sorry guys, I was distracted, forgive me. My green onion tops, and then I'm going to add my vegetarian oyster sauce. You can use real oyster sauce. I don't care for it. I prefer the vegetarian oyster sauce, which comes from mushrooms. I'm going to give this a quick toss, and once again guys, there's no heat. There's no heat here. This is all done with residual heat, absolutely no heat. We're going to toss it and make sure everything is coated nicely. And what can I say? This is deliciousness on a plate, guys. This is so yum. And it's ready. And all you have to do is serve it up. Make sure you get a good portion of noodles, good portion of vegetables. And here we have it, Singapore noodles. You can find this and other recipes on foodbeyonditsnutrition.com.